Hey everyone, and welcome to another deep dive. Today we're taking a look at Laurus Labs Ltd. We've got their Q3 and 9-month results for fiscal year 2025, along with press releases and company filings. You know the drill. We're going deep.
Looking forward to it. Always exciting to see how these companies are performing, especially one that's been making waves like Laurus Labs.
Right. So for anyone who's not familiar with Laurus Labs, let's start with the basics. Who are they? What do they do?
Well, Laurus Labs is an Indian pharmaceutical company. They're involved in research and manufacturing. They're pretty much the backbone behind a lot of innovative medicines.
Okay, so they make the medicines themselves, like the actual pills and stuff.
Not just that, they work with what are called APIs, active pharmaceutical ingredients. These are like the core components of any drug.
Gotcha. So that's the I in Laurus Labs. But they do more than just APIs, right?
Exactly. They also handle formulations, which is basically taking those APIs and turning them into the final product.
Yeah.
Tablets, capsules,
Yeah.
the stuff we actually take. And then there's the CDMO side of things.
Hold on, CDMO. That sounds like a whole other language. What is that?
It stands for Contract Development and Manufacturing Organization. Essentially, they team up with other pharmaceutical companies and help them develop and manufacture their drugs.
Ah, so it's like a partnership. They're helping other companies bring their medicines to life.
Precisely. And it's a big deal. This whole CDMO business is booming. Lots of companies are outsourcing this part of the process, and Laurus Labs is right there capitalizing on it.
Smart move. They're not just riding the wave, they're becoming a major part of it. Okay, so we've got the basics. Now let's get to the good stuff, the numbers. How did Laurus Labs perform this quarter and over the past 9 months?
Well, the numbers are looking pretty good. Overall, positive growth across the board. Revenue, EBITDA, and profit, both for the quarter and the 9 months.
Sounds promising. Anything in particular that stands out?
Yeah, Q3 saw some really impressive jumps, like their net profit for the quarter. It shot up by 300%.
300%. It's got to have investors doing a happy dance. What's fueling this growth? Is it all this CDMO action we were talking about?
CDMO is definitely a big factor. Their strong performance in that segment has definitely boosted their revenue. But it's not the only thing. They've managed to keep their gross margins healthy. Plus, some of their recent investments are starting to bear fruit.
Sounds like they've got a solid strategy. Focus on high-growth areas like CDMO, but also make sure their core business is strong. So we've talked about CDMO, but what about their other divisions? How did those perform?
So besides CDMO, you've got API's FDF, which stands for finished dosage forms. And then there's their bio division. That's where they're dipping their toes into the world of biotechnology.
Okay, let's break it down. Starting with APIs, how did they do?
Well, API's faced a bit of a challenge this quarter. It was mainly due to how they allocated their production capacity. They shifted some of that capacity towards higher yield opportunities.
Yeah.
Especially in the CDMO space.
Makes sense. They're going where the growth is. But did that impact their API business?
It did. The ARV market. That's antiretroviral. It's a key area for their API business, and it's facing some headwinds, which further impacted their performance.
So a bit of a trade-off. But it sounds like they're playing the long game, focusing on where they see the most potential. Now, what about those other two, FDF and Bio?
FDF did pretty well, held its own in the market. Bio is still in its early stages, but it's showing steady progress.
Got it. So a bit of a mixed bag, but overall a positive picture. Now, speaking of Bio, we came across some news about a big investment they received, something about 8 Roads Ventures. What's the story there?
Yeah, that's right. 8 Roads Ventures, along with F Prime Capital, pumped in a hefty 120 crore into Laurus Bio. And that money is going towards boosting their fermentation capacity.
Fermentation capacity. Why is that so important?
Well, it's crucial for producing larger volumes of bio-based products. Yeah. And that's where Laurus Labs is placing a big bet. They're really pushing towards sustainable manufacturing. It's a trend we're seeing across the entire pharma industry.
Interesting. So they're not just following the trend, they're actively shaping it. Now, another thing that caught our attention is their investment in R&D. They're putting serious money into research and development. What's their focus there?
They're definitely not holding back when it comes to innovation. A big chunk of their revenue goes straight to R&D. And one of the areas they're really excited about is cell and gene therapy.
Cell and gene therapy? That sounds pretty futuristic. What's the deal with that?
It's all about developing treatments that are tailored to your unique genetic makeup. Imagine treatments that target diseases at their source. It's a rapidly growing field, and Laurus Labs is right there on the cutting edge.
So they're not just treating symptoms, they're trying to address the root cause of diseases. That's pretty incredible. But are they putting all their eggs in this futuristic basket, or are they exploring other areas of innovation too?
They're covering all their bases. While they're exploring these cutting-edge technologies, they're also looking at ways to make drug production more efficient and cost-effective. Things like biocatalysis and microbial fermentation. They're not just chasing the shiny new toy, they're committed to making a real difference.
So it's a mix of pushing the boundaries and also making things better in the here and now. Sounds like they've got a lot going on, and it's all pointing towards a pretty exciting future. But before we move on to part 2 of our deep dive, I have a question for you. Given their push into biotech and these advanced therapies, could Laurus Labs become a major player in the personalized medicine market of the future? It's something to ponder as we dig deeper into their story.
As we're going through all this information about Laurus Labs, one thing that really stands out to me is their strategic shift towards those higher yield opportunities. It's pretty bold, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. It takes guts to shift gears like that, especially when one part of your business is already doing well.
Yeah.
But their decision to move some of that API capacity over to CDMO projects, it's definitely paying off.
Yeah, it is. Their API business might have hit a bit of a snag, but their CDMO segment has really taken off. They're not just reacting to the market, they're shaping it.
It makes you wonder what this all means for their long-term vision. Are they happy just being a supplier of ingredients, or are they aiming for something bigger?
Well, they're definitely playing the long game here. It seems like Laurus Labs is setting their sights on becoming a major player in the CDMO space. They want to be more than just a supplier. They want to be a partner.
So from ingredients to innovation, they want a hand in bringing new medicines to the world. That's a pretty big shift. But what does this mean for them globally? Are they just an Indian company, or are they thinking bigger?
They're aiming for a global presence. This move puts them right in the heart of the global pharmaceutical supply chain. As more companies choose to outsource, Laurus Labs is ready to step up.
It's like they're building this global network, connecting with companies all over the world. But is that risky? What if this whole outsourcing thing slows down?
That's always a possibility. But Laurus Labs has a few things working in their favor.
Mm.
First, their commitment to quality is top-notch. They've got all these certifications and successful audits. That matters a lot to international clients.
So they're building a reputation for reliability, which is huge in an industry where trust and quality are everything. What else have they got going for them?
They've been smart about diversifying their revenue streams. Remember, they're not just relying on CDMO. They still have their API, FDF, and bio divisions, each one contributing to their overall success. It's like a safety net.
So they're not putting all their eggs in one basket. Smart move. Now let's talk about their financials. We know their revenue and EBITDA are going up, but what about their profitability? That 300% increase in net profit for the quarter, was that just a fluke?
It was a big jump for sure, but it's not a one-time thing. Their 9-month figures also show a significant increase in net profit. It's a trend.
Okay, so it's not just a blip on the radar. What's driving this profit surge? Is it all CDMO?
CDMO is definitely helping. Those higher margins are boosting their bottom line, but they've also been really focused on improving their operational efficiency, streamlining processes, optimizing resources, to make sure every rupee counts.
It's like they're fine-tuning an engine, getting the most out of every part. But what about their commitment to research and development? All those cutting-edge technologies, how's that impacting their financials?
Well, those R&D investments, especially in areas like cell and gene therapy, they haven't really turned into a major revenue stream yet. Those are long-term bets.
Yeah, it takes time to bring those kinds of treatments to market. But are they sacrificing short-term gains for these long-term goals? Is that a risky strategy?
They're finding a balance. They're not neglecting their core business while they invest in innovation. It's a careful dance, making sure they're profitable today while preparing for the breakthroughs of tomorrow.
Okay, let's circle back to that personalized medicine question. Could Laurus Labs, with its push into biotech and these advanced therapies, become a big player in this whole personalized medicine market?
It's definitely possible. Their focus on cell and gene therapy, plus their expertise in things like biocatalysis and fermentation, it sets the stage for them to move into personalized medicine. They're developing the tools to make it happen.
It's a pretty mind-blowing concept. Medicines tailored specifically to your genetic makeup. Laurus Labs could be leading the way. But are there any challenges they might face?
Well, there are always challenges when you're dealing with something this innovative. One of the biggest hurdles will be navigating the regulations surrounding personalized medicine. It's a new field. The rules are still being written.
So it's not just about the science, it's about the legal and ethical side of things too. But Laurus Labs has a good track record when it comes to regulations. Think they can handle it?
I think they're well equipped. They have a strong regulatory affairs team. They've already gotten approvals for their products in multiple countries. They know how to navigate the system.
So they're not just scientists and engineers, they've got the regulatory know-how. But even if they figure out the regulations, what about the money? Personalized medicine can be really expensive to develop. Can Laurus Labs afford it?
This is a valid point.
Mm-hmm.
But they've shown they're willing to make big investments. And their recent financial performance suggests they have the resources to back it up. They're not just throwing money around, they're making calculated decisions.
So they're thinking strategically, not just about the now, but about the future. Now let's talk about their global expansion. We touched on it earlier, but can you give us a clearer picture of their international presence? Are they just testing the waters, or are they going all in?
They're not just testing the waters, they're making a splash. They've set up manufacturing facilities and formed partnerships in key markets all over the world.
So it's more than just expanding their reach, there's a strategy behind it.
Exactly. It's
Well,
about tapping into new markets, diversifying their revenue streams, and reducing their reliance on any one region. It's about building a more resilient and sustainable business model.
so they're not just chasing profits, they're thinking long term. Now, we've talked a lot about their business strategy and financial performance, but what about their commitment to ESG? Is that just a buzzword for them, or are they really walking the talk?
ESG is more than just a buzzword for Laurus Labs. It's part of their core values. They've shown a real commitment to sustainability and social responsibility.
Can you give us some examples? How are they putting these commitments into action?
Well, they've implemented programs to reduce their environmental impact. Things like investing in renewable energy and minimizing waste. They've also been recognized for their efforts to promote diversity and inclusion in the workplace. And they're committed to ethical business practices. Transparency and integrity are important to them.
So it's not just about the bottom line, it's about doing business the right way, which is great to see. Now, as we get ready to wrap up this part of our deep dive, what stands out to you the most about Laurus Labs? What's the one thing you think our listeners should remember?
What impresses me the most is their ability to balance ambition with caution. They're going after aggressive growth, but they're doing it in a way that's financially responsible and sustainable. They're in it for the long haul.
Yeah.
And that's something that investors, patients, anyone who cares about the future of medicine should take note of.
It's a pretty inspiring story. A company that's not afraid to dream big, but also knows how to make those dreams a reality. But before we move on to the final part of our deep dive, there's still one piece of the puzzle we need to explore: their financial reports. We need to dig into the details, analyze the metrics, and see if we can uncover any more insights into their strategic direction.
You're right. The devil's in the details. And sometimes those details can reveal a lot more than the big picture.
So join us for part 3, where we'll dive into the nitty-gritty of their financial statements, explore their capital allocation strategies, and see if we can predict what the future holds for this remarkable company. You don't want to miss it. Welcome back to the final part of our deep dive into Laurus Labs. We've explored their strategic moves, their global expansion. We've even talked about their commitment to ESG. But now it's time to crunch some numbers and dive into their financials.
Yeah, let's see what the numbers tell us.
So let's start with their revenue. We know their CDMO segment is on fire, but how much does it actually contribute to their overall revenue?
Well, in the third quarter alone, their CDMO segment brought in a whopping 400 crore. That's an 89% increase year over year.
89%. Wow, that's impressive. No wonder everyone's talking about their CDMO success. But what about their other divisions? Are they just playing catch-up?
While CDMO is definitely the star of the show, their other divisions aren't slouching either. APIs brought in euro 531 crore, FDF came in at 436 crore, and their bio division contributed 48 crore.
Okay, so it's a well-rounded portfolio. They're not putting all their eggs in one basket, which is always a good sign. But what about profitability? We know they've maintained healthy gross margins. But what about their EBITDA margins?
Their EBITDA margins are definitely trending upwards. In Q3, they hit 20.1%. That's a pretty significant jump from the previous year.
Okay, I have to admit, sometimes these financial terms can sound a bit like gibberish to me. Can you break down what this EBITDA margin means and why should we care about it going up?
Sure. Think of EBITDA margin as a measure of how efficiently they're running their business. It basically shows how much profit they're making from their core operations before you factor in things like interest and taxes. So the higher the margin, the better. And this jump to 20.1% tells us they're getting better at managing their costs and squeezing more profit out of every rupee.
So it's not just about growing revenue, it's about growing it profitably, which is the key to long-term success. Now let's talk about their balance sheet. We mentioned their debt levels earlier. Can you give us some more details on their financial leverage? Are they taking on too much debt to fuel this growth?
Right now, their net debt to EBITDA ratio is at 3.1x, which is a bit high, but it's mainly due to those investments they've been making in growth projects, especially in the CDMO and bio segments.
So they're borrowing to invest in the future, But could that come back to bite them? Is this debt level sustainable?
It's a valid concern. High debt can be risky.
Mm.
But Laurus Labs has been pretty clear about their plan to reduce this leverage as those projects start generating revenue. They're not just piling on debt without a plan.
So they're keeping a close eye on it, which is reassuring. Now, speaking of investments, how are they allocating their resources to fuel future growth?
Their capital allocation strategy is pretty focused. They're putting their money where their mouth is, investing heavily in those high-growth areas like CDMO and bio. They're also pouring resources into R&D, especially in those transformative technologies we talked about earlier. And they're continuing to expand their global footprint.
It sounds like they're hitting all the right notes, but are they spreading themselves too thin?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
They seem to be choosing their battles carefully, focusing on areas where they have a clear advantage and where they see the biggest potential for returns.
So they're being strategic with their resources. Now for our final question. We've talked a lot about their financials and their growth plans, but what about their commitment to ESG? How are they incorporating sustainability into their financial decisions?
ESG is more than just a checkbox for Laurus Labs. They're actually integrating sustainability into their capital allocation process. This means investing in energy-efficient technologies, promoting sustainable manufacturing practices, and supporting social initiatives in their communities.
So they're thinking about the bigger picture, not just about profits, but about people and the planet, which is really encouraging to see.
Absolutely. They're proving that you can be successful while also being responsible.
Well, that brings us to the end of our deep dive into Laurus Labs. We've covered a lot of ground today. We've analyzed their strategic moves, dissected their financials, and explored their vision for the future.
It's been a fascinating journey. Laurus Labs is truly a company to watch. They're pushing the boundaries of innovation and making a positive impact on the world.
And on that note, we want to thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you've enjoyed this journey as much as we have. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.